Luke, welcome to Building Futures, our career conversations with industry leaders across the built environment. The reason that I wanted you to come on today was to talk about the biggest issue that we have across our industry. So can you talk a little bit about your job, because that feeds into this big issue that we're trying to fix across our industry?
Yeah, so my current role, and it's been a winding journey to get where I am right now, but I'm a Quality Diversity Inclusion Manager at Arup. So I look at delivering their total inclusion strategy across the UK, India, Middle East and Africa region.
So what I was indicating there is, across the industry there's an acknowledgement that we desperately need more diversity and inclusion. That we have traditionally, just talking about gender here, that only 1% of people on site are women. We have 13% across the whole industry. There's underrepresentation of LGBTQ+, of different people from different ethnic minorities, from people who are differently abled, people from different walks of life. Our industry at the moment doesn't reflect society. Mm-hmm. So in terms of your job, knowing what you know, what would you advise to people who are listening to this, who maybe have got a target written on a flip chart somewhere about wanting to improve DE&I, but don't know where to start and what practical steps to take?
Yeah, well, targets are only good if it's backed up with other action to help you get there. And really you've got to understand, where do your issues lie? And so data is huge in this space if you can. I know for SMEs that's not always possible because you're a small organisation, but definitely for the larger organisations, collecting diversity information on your employees, so which demographics are you attracting and which ones are you not, and interrogate your recruitment strategy and approach, so are a certain underrepresented group falling down at a certain stage of your application process, or the selection process, and that you can then start to put in solutions to fix that, and then start to look at this diversity and get it to talk to other elements of your employee life cycle. So exit interviews. Do you have a huge amount of attrition rate for a certain underrepresented group? And can you start looking at, the feedback that they give you in those processes? Look at appraisals. Who's getting promoted? Are certain underrepresented groups or women not being promoted at the same rate? And you can start to interrogate the different areas of the employee life cycle to see actually where is our issue, where does our focus need to be, and what opportunities can we take out of this?
So I can see how passionate you are about this. So can you explain about your career? Because you're obviously very successful. Tell me about your own career and how you've ended up doing the role you're doing now.
Yeah, so didn't do particularly well at university. Went into an entry-level job, a contractor. I'm a gay man. I wasn't open about my sexual orientation when I first joined the industry, because I was scared of the implications. I thought that it would have, an impact on my progression, basically. So I didn't disclose it, and it was only until I saw that this organisation had staff networks, so an LGBTQ+ staff network, and that sent me the message that actually it's okay to be open and you can be yourself in this organisation. So I got involved in that network. I started speaking and finding people similar to me, and found that my experience wasn't a one-off, and actually those microaggressions, etc., that we face are quite universal in the industry. And so we wanted to do more, and everything was really London-centric, and I'm based up north, and there's only a few of us that were part of the network up north, and so in London, they had this inter-network in the industry called Building Equality, which is an alliance of construction, engineering, built environment organisations that work together to drive LGBTQ+ inclusion. And so I basically took the idea that they had down in London and franchised it up into Manchester, and started connecting with individuals from the RICS, WSP, and it really just snowballed. We took part in our first Manchester Pride in 2017. We had about 40 people join us. And the following year, we had the best part of 200 people join us in that.
Wow.
So really did sort of kick off. And that's where, as a group, we also realised we could do so much more than just Pride. Like, the visibility is great, but actually, we know there's issues within our industry. And at that time, Construction News were actually doing surveys on LGBTQ plus experiences. They don't do it anymore. I'm not sure why, but they don't. And so we used that data to develop a couple of solutions that we could use across our industry, particularly on site. So we developed a poster campaign focused on microaggressions that the community face, that could just be put up on site boards, offices, to understand that saying that's so gay is actually, offensive and can make people recoil and go within themselves, and there were some quite quirky ones in there as well where we flipped them on the head. So I'm sure, we had one that said, that's so, what was it? That's so, no, I don't mind if you're straight, just don't flaunt it. And so it was to flip it around to go, actually, your ignorance is being highlighted, to go, if you say that, how silly it sounds. And then alongside that, we developed the LGBTQ plus inclusion toolbox talk and expanded that for the allyship toolbox talk that could be delivered on site, within 30 minutes to all operatives, to sort of lay out, give a bit of background information on the community, because, a lot of our workforce comes from Section 28, and that was a bit of legislation in the UK where schools were allowed to educate on LGBTQ plus identities. And so a lot of people don't really understand the differences or the language and the terminology. And so we thought we had an opportunity to go out there on site and educate this out. And it was fantastic. It's been used by hundreds of organisations, thousands of operatives have undertaken the training. It's won awards, and really did help change the landscape for LGBTQ plus inclusion in the industry.
So where could anyone find this? Because this sounds, if they're given it's won awards, this sounds excellent. Does it have to be delivered by the organisation? Is it something that people could deliver themselves?
Yeah, no, so we purposely made sure that everything that we created was free to use.
Amazing.
And we put the script in the notes of the slides, so anybody can pick it up and practice the script and deliver it, because we wanted it to reach, well, beyond construction engineering. We wanted it to reach far and wide and make sure that anybody could deliver it.
Absolutely. And you saw the impact, did you? When you started doing it, you immediately could see that you felt it was almost an educational gap.
Yeah, and it allowed people as well to become greater allies to the community. Yes. A lot of the time people are afraid to get involved because they're afraid they'll say the wrong thing. Yeah. And this was sort of just spelling out to them the terminology you can use and maybe the terminology you shouldn't use, and giving them that extra background to go, actually, I can stand up for this community. I don't have to, be part of it to stand alongside them. And so I think it was very empowering.
Amazing. And so for you then, in your own journey, you mentioned you started working for a contractor and now you work for a consultancy. And what was there a step along that way in terms of coming more towards the role that you're now doing? So it happened more in your own time, it sounds like, and then it became more of your job.
Yeah, so there's a lot of extracurricular activity that I was doing on top of my day job. So I actually started working in work winning, in bidding.
Right.
And because then I got involved with the staff networks and LGBTQ activism, I'd become the go-to person to answer those social value or equality, diversity, inclusion questions within the tenders. And so it became, I guess, sort of an organic transition into this role where, I'd gone from bidding and now I act at Arup as a centre of excellence to support our work-winning teams on these responses. I help deliver inclusion action plans for major clients like HS2 and National Highways. But yeah, it was, as I said at the beginning, it was a winding road to get there. I never knew this would become a career. You always think you have to be maybe from a HR background to do this role, but you don't. Passion and enthusiasm can take you a long way, and saying yes to those opportunities, even though you don't know whether that yes is taking you to the part in your career you want it to, but it's got to give you the skills that you can then lean on in other roles in the future.
So given that this is such a important part of what's going to change the construction, property and built environment industries. What is it that you can see needs to be done now? So you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk, you're actually going out and delivering it. What next? What needs to happen next to make this industry feel home and welcoming to everybody?
Yeah, it's a good one because there's not a one size fits all. There's no silver bullet that's got to solve all our issues, and that's why I think for organisations, regardless of size, is talking to your people, understanding what your people need. Having those employee resource groups or staff networks helps for those underrepresented groups to come together, and feel seen. Offer them a platform to share their stories. There is so much power in human stories, because it allows us to have that empathy to the challenges that people face that we might not be, accustomed to ourselves. I very, I acknowledge the fact that I sit here as a white man, and so have a lot of privilege from that. Other parts of my background, bring that privilege down, but at the end of the day, I'm still a man, and so I'm afforded a lot of privilege for that, and I'm still white, so I'm afforded a lot of privilege, and it's acknowledging that, but moving my privilege so that I can empower and uplift others that don't have it.
Which is massive. And I think we want more people because we face, as an industry, the biggest societal problems that we need to help to fix, like the sustainability of the planet, how do we get to net carbon zero? And we'll only come up with the best solutions to those problems if we make this feel like home. You mentioned earlier that there is not just an impact on the community that you're working in terms of the built environment, but there's a societal change impact that you think it adds social purpose to what we do when we talk about D&I. Can you explain more about what you think and the impact you think it has?
Yeah, well, I think the changes to social value in the UK and the PPN that came out a couple of years ago that mean all tenders now have 10% social value, and that includes equal opportunities and economic inequalities, and it's all intrinsically linked with ED&I. And how do we uplift our communities, and delivering that social value is about those local needs and understanding what are those local needs and how do we uplift those underrepresented groups and support them to come through our industry, from those non-traditional routes, so apprentices and internships, and making sure those internships are paid, because if you're an underrepresented group, chances are you're also from a lower socioeconomic background and you're not going to be able to do these unpaid work experience or internships. And so we've got to, make the opportunities that we offer to our communities equitable, so that we can reach them. And we've got to sell ourselves a bit better sometimes.
Don't we just? I totally agree.
It's not all about muddy boots on a site. There is so much more, and the digital element has come on so much over the last few years. I'm no expert in it, but the kids are all about that, and TikTok and comms, and there's so much more to construction than just, being out on site. There is so much more, and I think we could reach so many more people if we just sold ourselves a little better.
Well, and this was the reason that we wanted to do these conversations, was because we know that we have so much that we can change. There's also so much that we already do as our industry. We make sure that we have clean water, we make sure we've got roads and highways, we make sure that we have buildings where people can be treated, educated, live, etc., meet and work, social time, and yet we are very poor at selling actually the impact that we make on society. And I think there can be these stereotypes, as you just said, of muddy boots and cold on site, and actually it's so much more than that, because it's everything from architecture, yes, all the way down to muddy boots on site, but also then the maintenance of buildings as they progress. So it is interesting how we make this career attractive. When you reflect on your own career, was there any pivotal moments where you go, that was a moment that was really important?
Yeah, there was, and it always sticks with me. And it's not a particularly positive experience, but sort of was what spurred me on to sort of continue doing what I'm doing. And it was a colleague that said to me, you do know, because of your sexual orientation, because you're gay, you're going to have to work twice as hard in this industry to make it. And I sort of thought, you don't mean that in a way to upset me, but as a way to sort of, I don't know, warn me of some of the barriers within this industry. And I sort of have mulled over that over the years on that statement. And, you know, there is probably some truth in it. You know, that, you know, if you're a woman or if you're from an ethnic minority background or if you're disabled, you know, there is greater barriers that you face, not just in our industry, but society and in other industries that we need to work together to break down. And so I think I always remember that because it spurs me on to go, we're not there yet, so we need to continue.
Yes, absolutely, which is why we want to have conversations like this.
Yeah.
So when you look at, you know, the success that you've had, and if you were talking to either your sort of 15, 16-year-old self, or if we put you in front of children now, what top tips would you give them about their careers and how to, life hacks or just things that you do, that you've done in your career that's got you to where you are now?
Yeah, so I'd definitely tell myself to go to more lectures at university.
Right, okay, yeah.
But I was going to life hacks or speak to myself. You know, it comes back to that point around opportunities and saying yes, you know, and networking. Network. You know, there's that whole saying that it's not what you know, but who you know, actually is really powerful. And I think, you know, by having those connections through building equality, you know, and knowing people at all those different organisations, it's helped me when I've wanted to grow and maybe move to another organisation because I've known people that work in it already, and so I can sort of lean on those relationships to assist. So networking is key, saying yes is key, and like not everything has got to work out as you plan in your head. And there's got to be bumps in the road, and there's got to be hurdles and barriers that you hit, and that's okay, and that's actually got to help you develop and make you be stronger. So don't be discouraged by them, sort of, you know, take them as they come and sort of run with it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Luke. I've found that really practical, actually, because I think a lot of people know that they want to make their communities, organisation, team feel more inclusive, but actually don't know how to do that. And I think you've given some really good practical examples of how we can make our industry feel more inclusive and home for more people. So thank you so much for coming in and talking to us today.
No worries, thank you for having me.